The learning curve today has been outstanding. I'm very pleased to be part of this meeting. Thank you again, GenderNet, for funding. TIGER stands for Tinnitus, Genetics, and Environmental Risks. We're 4 partners: Sweden, Norway, Spain, and Italy. And we have a multidisciplinary approach here with genetics, biomarker analysis to try to understand tinnitus. Tinnitus is a ringing that people perceive in the ears. George mentioned before he has that, so I wanted to ask the audience, who has ever experienced a ringing in the ears? A few hands? Quite healthy people, I'd say. It has multidimensionality. People can experience it now and then. It can be occasional. Some people can have it constant. Some people can have it very loud, and it at that stage starts to impact life quality in a quite important way. And Tiger started by noticing that women that experience tinnitus have greater levels of anxiety, stress, and depression. And then we wanted to ask the question, why is this ongoing? And in fact, at the moment we got the GenderNet funding to start this process, I got enrolled within the global burden of study, the disease study, to understand more about disorders like hearing loss as well. And I was happy to enforce some of the gender stratifications in the analysis. We could see that in Scandinavia, these patterns of stress, anxiety, and depression are indeed in greater prevalence in women, whereas in men instead is cardiovascular diseases, stroke, diabetes that are much more prevalent. So there are important things to take into consideration. Now, why I'm talking about this is saying how global our findings in Sweden are is because also Carlotta, PhD student working in this project, just made a global systematic review and figured out that those gender differences don't appear at a global scale. So there are some local social effects that might also have implications to our research. So finally, what we've been trying to understand is, can we find biomarkers that are specific for men and women that can explain then this greater burden in women? So we've been doing a lot of genetics and electrophysiology, plasma biomarkers. And to give you an example, we found that sex has an importance in how tinnitus is transmitted within the family. Women have 2 times greater risk for having tinnitus if they have a sibling with tinnitus. And what this allowed us to do is a genetic investigation to figure out that there are some rare variants involved in an exacerbation of that phenomenon and at the level of the brain. Some of the challenges we had is that at the beginning when the study was designed, we didn't really make the difference that was in 2015 about males and females. You can see here that when we re-asked the questions to the participants, 4 out of 4,000 people mentioned they were intersex, and then a proportion of them didn't want to share that information, which means that probably some of the data we had collected before could have been also biased by some phenomenon. And many of the large cohorts that we've been using, that was a comment before, only use male and female definitions without even allowing people not to respond to that question. So this also could have caused some differences there. When we made our studies, and particularly the epidemiology, we systematically found male and female differences. But what we found afterwards is also when we make the stratification and you separate into clusters of males and females, then the differences are big but not significant. So then our challenge is, how can we interpret these findings? I'll give you an example here where we evaluated the risk for suicidal attempts in men and women separately, and that data, thank you, we could show that there was an important risk in women with severe tinnitus but not in men, and this could have also been a result of eventually the variables that we've selected and potentially p-hacking, which is a thing we want to discuss in the workshop. Similar here, there is a difference, there is a gender impact into the risk for headaches in women to develop severe tinnitus, but that when you stratify this data, you see that the level for men is greater than in women, but these differences do not split. They are not statistically different. So one point that we would like to raise up here is, how can we convey the message to society about what is impacting severe tinnitus in women. How do we interpret the statistical findings? And that's our challenge. Thank you.